What is up, explorers? Matt here, and this is my review of Sir Ernest Shackleton's ship LEGO's new Endurance. Now, I have one major complaint about this set, but I can't give everything away at the very beginning of the video. But if you keep watching, I have a feeling you are going to agree with me. This massive ship comes with 3,011 pieces and costs $270 here in the US. It's 32 inches long and 19 inches tall, making it one of the biggest ships LEGO has ever made. If you live anywhere that uses sensible measurements, that's 80 centimeters long. It's really big. Not Titanic big, because that ship is just ridiculously big. Like, do you have a place to put that Titanic? I don't have a place to put it. Like, get out of here. Why is this ship even important, and who is Ernest Shackleton anyway? I don't want to turn this into a history channel, but let's just quickly talk about this explorer guy, Ernest Shackleton. Ernest Shackleton is best known for his 1914 Antarctic expedition. The South Pole had already been reached by this point, but Shackleton set out to sail to Antarctica and be the first person in history to cross the continent on foot, but his ship, the Endurance, became trapped in the dense ice of the Weddell Sea and forced the crew into a struggle for survival. Over the course of more than a year, Shackleton displayed extraordinary leadership, keeping the morale of his crew high despite the frigid and remote conditions. After the Endurance was crushed by the Antarctic ice, Shackleton and his men were forced to camp on the ice floes before making a harrowing journey in basically lifeboats to South Georgia Island, where they sought help. Despite the challenges, not a single life was lost during the ordeal, a testament to Shackleton's remarkable resilience and his ability to inspire loyalty and determination in his crew. That expedition has since become legendary for its display of human endurance and the power of strong leadership in the face of adversity. Now, this ship is great, but I really can't wait to dig in and see that Ernest Shackleton minifig we get with this ship because, I mean, naturally it would come with a minifig of Ernest Shackleton, right? Right, LEGO? Well, let's go ahead and put a pin in that one for just a few minutes. The Endurance is a pretty big ship, so it comes in a pretty big box with yet another box inside. Around half of the 28 bags are loose in the main box, and those will get you halfway through that thick instruction book. The box inside the box contains the second half of the Legos, the cloth sail pieces, the 2 thick gray strings needed for the rigging, and the instructions. Fortunately, there are no stickers in this set. The instructions start off by telling the story of the Endurance and what happened during that expedition. There are maps and historic photos taken from the voyage, and I really appreciate getting this kind of background information in sets that have such a strong historic or scientific origin. And that's one of the reasons I love building these LEGO sets based on historic events, because it gives you an opportunity to really learn something new. One page talks about the design process and how Hans Schlömer landed on the scale of the model by starting with the lifeboats and then working his way up from there. And while the ship isn't designed in minifig scale, there are 2 detailed cabins included in the aft section, one for Ernest Shackleton's cabin and the other for a scientist. The build process was pretty straightforward most of the time, although I really enjoyed that it was built in sections that later joined by inserting these Technic axles through these plates with the holes that line up. It's actually pretty satisfying seeing it all come together, and as the black and white hull sections continue attaching together, you really get a sense for how large this build is. Now, this set actually does not come with any minifigs, so let's take a look at this big ship and see what you'll get if you decide to build it. Let's start with this brown stand, which looks a little bit undersized to me, but does a really nice job of holding the Endurance while not drawing too much attention to itself. The plaque at the front is printed and includes some background information about the ship, such as the type of vessel it was and the original name, the Polaris. The hull of the Endurance is mostly black with white trim, and while you might expect it to be a fingerprint magnet, I think because it's not a top surface, it mostly looks pretty clean and even. There's a little bit of weirdness near the bow and the stern where all these different curves are happening, but overall it looks really good, and the designer did a really nice job of getting these angles right. The front of a ship is called the bow, and that's the first section you'll build. The bowsprit is that long piece that sticks out the front of the ship, and the white detailing here looks pretty accurate to what you see on historic photos of the Endurance, and looks pretty great against that black hull. Although the Endurance at the bottom of the ocean has 2 anchors, we only get 1 portside anchor on the LEGO model. The rest of the bow is detailed with other goodies, including these 2 gear racks in dark brown used to represent ladders. The center section includes a bridge with a compass on top of a larger cabin area that would represent the mess hall, and below this would have been the crew quarters. The ship includes 4 lifeboats, and these come in 2 slightly different sizes and designs. I have to be honest, these were not the most fun to build. It was pretty repetitive, but they do look pretty nice on the Endurance. Behind the bridge is another area of the deck that includes another pair of lifeboats, 2 rows of kennels for the dogs that Shackleton brought to pull the sleds and were definitely not eaten later, and a large vented window section with these grates. You can also see that tall white stack in this section, which tells us that this wasn't just powered by sails. The Endurance is also powered with a 350 horsepower coal-fired steam engine, and that engine can be pulled out to make all your friends jealous. You can lift up this little middle deck section and everything on top comes off, but don't let your friends watch you do that part because it's just about as awkward as trying to brush someone else's teeth. But it does come off and probably won't pull up any other parts if you're careful, and you'll be able to see the Lego steam engine inside. The engine itself is pretty cool looking, with details added by a steering wheel, a paint roller, and this little gauge. Getting it back in there and seated properly and attached to the studs and everything is a little bit tricky because it's a tight space, so do it if you want to, but also if you want to just drop it in there and let it float around loosely like a heathen, I'm not going to say a word. Carefully and awkwardly angle that deck piece back on, and then we'll move back to the very aft section of the ship. I think this last section includes a lot of the best details. There are these two white flexible rods that add a lot of nice shaping and finishing to the back. I really like the two life preservers included in white, the two ladders on the side, and the ship's helm, which is connected to the rudder through a set of gears that lets you steer the ship, which is actually kind of fun to do. I did it for like 5 minutes. Maybe not 5, maybe like 2, maybe 1. It's fun. There's also a gold propeller down there that's not connected to anything, so you can just spin it around and it's kind of like a little fidget spinner. And we get a nice little printed nameplate with the name Endurance and a star that was left over from when the ship was called the Polaris. Let's talk about the sails because this ship has a lot of them, probably more than any other Lego ship. As you can see, the Endurance has square rigging on the foremast out front and fore and aft rigging on the main mast in the center and the mizzen mast in the back. If you're curious, that makes this a kind of ship called the Barkentine, which sounds like a pretty cool name to me. Barkentine. Arr. Wait, he wasn't a pirate. I don't think. The last secret of the aft section are these two cabins found if you lift up the deck right here. On the starboard side is Ernest Shackleton's cabin, which is actually exactly where his quarters are located on the actual ship, at the bottom of the ocean. His room comes with what looks like a small bed and a seat, a shelf with a heating rod out front, and a table with some bread and cheese on top. The room on the port side looks like it was meant for a scientist or a navigator and includes a map of Antarctica, a table with a lamp and other materials, and a second steam heating pipe. As someone who loves maps, that little map of Antarctica looks really, really nice. The sails on this set are pretty thin and slightly annoying to put on. I don't know if they actually rip easily because I didn't rip any of them while I was building this set, but they definitely felt like they were about to. And while they're stiff enough to hang nicely, they don't actually connect to anything on the bottom, so don't think you're going to attach a motor to this bad boy and take it out on the lake, because these sails are not going to work. But between those sails and the rigging made from the thick gray strings, the overall look is actually pretty great and makes this feel like a pretty detailed model. The rest of the rigging is made from these flexible rods and these angled arm pieces, and I'm going to be honest, I hate building these little things. I did not enjoy building them when they were part of the Viking village and they were meant to be a little rope bridge, and I did not like building 6 of them here, but you know, they do look really nice on the ship, so you just do it once, I guess, or 6 times. So the Endurance is beautiful, maybe my favorite Lego ship ever, and it's one of the best looking ships that Lego has ever made. So what's the problem? Earlier I said there was some big issue with the set. What is it? This is the problem. This little set includes a beautiful Ernest Shackleton minifig, as well as one for the expedition photographer Frank Hurley. They're both shown here with a larger version of one of the ship's lifeboats. This particular lifeboat was called the James Caird, and Shackleton had this 22-foot lifeboat reinforced so that it could handle the dangerous trip from the tiny, rocky Elephant Island where he and his men were stranded to South Georgia Island over 800 miles away. It's a great little set, and it was available for anyone who bought the Endurance in the first, 2 days this set was available. And then it was gone. So I can tell you how great the Endurance is, and it's true. This is a great set. But if you don't have this little ship in your hot little hands right now, then you are probably never ever gonna see that Ernest Shackleton minifig to go with your Endurance. And that sucks. A lot. I used to really like the concept of a gift with purchase, to reward mega fans with something fun and unusual and non-essential, just like the way they usually do with something like the May the 4th gift with purchase sets. But to me, locking an exclusive minifig behind a gift with purchase that they're not going to make very many of and are going to run out within a couple hours or days of making the set available just feels predatory and gross to me. It's shady and I don't like it. This is not a little beach scene with a really nice looking but otherwise sort of generic minifig. This is the captain of the expensive new ship Lego is selling, and not only does it not come with any minifigs, but the figure obviously connected to the set was available for days at most. I'm sorry, but I just find that to be unacceptable. In my opinion, Lego needs to make a lot more of these little sets and minifigs, not give them away for free to a handful of lucky people at the very beginning, and just sell them for $20 or $25 to anyone who wants one. They're gonna make plenty of money that way. I still think Shackleton's minifig should have come with this ship, but at least making it available for purchase would give everyone a chance. Let me know if you agree or not in the comments. Later, nerds. And then it was gone.